2018, when we started that program, that was really, really clicked because we had one, two, three, four, five, about six salon owners between 2018 and 2020. And 2018, it was like, okay, what I've been doing for years, what I did in coaching you, I basically applied the same principles that I taught them in coaching from the field to the boardroom. That was the biggest thing. It was like these principles I teach them about discipline and accountability and study and consistency and persistency was the two things that I taught on defense, right? I said, because if you're persistent, that means you have faith. That means you actually believe in what it is you're trying to achieve.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Aundre Blasingame, a celebrity chef and competition food sport champion whose 30-plus years journey from Walt Disney World intern to coaching teams at major corporations like Dr. Pepper, Keurig, and American Airlines has shaped his unique approach to developing winning mindsets. What makes Aundre's perspective fascinating is how he combines his culinary mastery with systematic business coaching, creating scalable processes that transform not just individual performance, but entire team dynamics. Aundre's influence extends from launching fusion culinary programs internationally with Rotary to hosting Flavor on a Budget on Roku, but his core mission remains helping people unlock their voice and unleash their power across wealth, health, and relationships. His coaching approach, influenced by Dr. Eric Thomas, focuses on shifting mindsets from limitation to abundance, proving that the same principles that create championship-level culinary excellence can drive success in any arena. Welcome to the show, Aundre.
Appreciate the wonderful intro, Pedro. I don't think I've heard it read so eloquently in a long time.
Man, I only have you to blame to it, you know?
Yeah,
You're the one to blame the intro, you know? So, it's great to have you, Aundre. Let's start with that. And I always love to rewind a bit, go back to the origin story, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you, Aundre?
My origin story?
Yeah.
So my origin story starts way back in my youth. Most people, especially when you go into culinary or even in coaching, you think about what shaped you as a youth. When I was a youth, I wanted to be a professional football player. So I had no aspirations of being a chef, going into the hospitality industry, coaching anything at that matter. And in my teen years, I got into some trouble, and I spent about a year inside a juvenile detention center. I was about the age of 15, and I was just running the streets, dealing with a lot of different trauma in my life. While I was in there, I realized, I had made a promise to my mother who had passed away when I was 10. I made a promise that, I was going to graduate, I was going to go to college, I was going to do all the great things that she wanted me to do. And so when I got out, I turned my life around. And my mentor, I always got to give a shout out to my mentor, Darren White. He's also passed. He was the one that told me, he said, are you a product of your environment, or do you want to be a benefit to your environment? I always forget exactly how he said it. It's like, you don't have to be a product of your environment. You can be a success from your environment. That's what he said. He asked me would I like to travel international. Now, I grew up in very urban, low income neighborhoods, right, in my city. And so the idea of a youth being able to travel international, especially in the teen years, is something that was very, very far-fetched. It was expensive. It's not something common. My parents didn't, my mom didn't do it. My father did. He was in the military. And so on my first internship, I went to Barbados. And in Barbados, we stayed at a hotel called the Golden Sands. And at the Golden Sands Hotel, we had to work all the areas, the front desk, the pool, the groundskeeper. And I got an opportunity to be in the kitchen. And while in the kitchen, It just felt natural. There's with God, I feel God to give certain people certain gifts that are natural. And until you realize it, you don't know that it's natural for you. Like some people naturally can sing, right? But then some people can hold a tune. And if you teach them over a series of years, they can become great singers, right? And so I just had a natural talent for being in the kitchen. Fast forward, I got my first job. I was baking bread for a local sandwich shop. I was coming after school and bake bread for them. And that's where my love for culinary started. And then from culinary, went to University of Houston for hospitality and restaurant management. I was manager from fine dining establishments all the way down to fast food. The only area I believe I haven't worked in has been working on a cruise ship as far as a chef is concerned. I decided to go back to school, get some more education, got offered an internship to work at Walt Disney World in Orlando. So I moved to Orlando, Florida for a year and worked at the Grand Floridian. And then from there, that's when the culinary life really took off and coaching. Because when I came back to my hometown, I started coaching football because I had played football all my life. And one of my great stories, and this is great for me as a coach, I was a defensive coordinator for this team. And it was my first year coaching, and the other coach had been coaching for like 6, 7 years. He had never won a championship. He had never won anything. And he wanted me to come in and run a defense. I run a very simple but effective defense when it comes to football. And so I implemented that defense. The first year, we didn't win one football game. We went 0, goose egg, not a one. Very next year, with just about the same kids, we went 12-0, and we won the city championship in just 1 year. And he said, I've been coaching this team, these kids 6, 7 years, and I've never won a championship or even made it past the first round of the playoff. And it said, you came in and made a few adjustments, and here we are. And so in that 5-year run, I don't think we ever had another losing season after that. We didn't win another championship, but we never had another losing season. And that's when I knew that coaching was a calling for me to be able to do it.
Okay. I love the origin story.
Yeah, that's the origin story to get to where coaching truly started. I actually started coaching football, and then it turned into business, and then it turned into helping chefs get out of that 12 to 15-hour day and be able to still have sanity, keep their relationship, and not be stuck with the multitude of addictions that my industry gives people.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love the promise you made to your mom. I gotta highlight that, right? The power of moms out there. Okay. And that eventually puts you on the right track. So I love that. But I want to understand one thing, Aundre, because the shift that happens, you start coaching those kids, right? And then you move to business and all that, and you kind of mentioned it. But when did you realize, okay, from I'm helping people to I'm building a real business around coaching? When that shift happened?
That shift happened 2018. So 8, 9 years ago? 2018. I had started investing in different real estate things because I had become an entrepreneur. I started my catering company first, and the catering company was going well. So I started taking my dividends and started investing in different properties. And so I invested in a hair salon business. Me and about 12 other business owners. And we put our money together, and roughly about from 2012 to about 2017, we built 3 hair salons with over 100 plus hairstylists. When we got to that plateau of having that unit, we wanted to turn those hairstylists because they were all independent. They didn't work for us like most hair salons have people that were employed. They were all independent. All they did was, we were in the real estate game. Let me say it like that. We weren't in the hair game at all. We bought the building. You paid us rent to use this space because it's a requirement in the state that you license and you got to be in a building that's licensed. So we just housed the building. So we came up with an idea to create a business program for them so that they can be, entrepreneurs have the right structure together where they're not paying double tax. Because in the US, when you have an LLC or a business and you're self-employed and you're the only person in that, you're double taxed. You got to pay your regular tax, then you got to pay the tax with the business, right? And so we didn't want them to fall into that because they were losing money, but they were self-employed. So we created business programs for them to have the ability to not following that double tax rut, understand saving and investing. And we also gave them the opportunity to become business owners and own their own salon because we were hoping to franchise. So 2018, when we started that program, that was really, really click because we had one, two, three, four, five, about six salon owners between 2018 and 2020. And 2018, it was like, okay, what I've been doing for years, what I did in coaching you, I basically applied the same principles that I taught them in coaching from the field to the boardroom. That was the biggest thing. It was like these principles I teach them about discipline and accountability and study and consistency and persistency was the two things that I taught on defense, right? I said, because if you're persistent, that means you have faith. That means you actually believe in what it is you're trying to achieve. And if you're consistent, you'll see the results. Because if you're consistently bad, you're going to consistently see bad results. But if you're consistently good, you're going to consistently see good results. So when I applied that, it was 2018 that I did that realization that I can really, I've always been helping people because I'm in the hospitality industry, but I was like, I can really maximize on this and really help business owners to not be in that rut or in that mindset of, I'm going to fail. I would teach them the mindset of, I'm going to succeed. Failure is an option. It's just not the only option, right? You have to understand that we don't take losses in business. We take learning opportunities. You always win because even when you lose, you learn. And incorporating that mindset into coaching, that's when it was for me, 2018. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely something that I was born to do. I've had years of training in at this point. Went got certified so that people would see that this is a certified coach that went through some training on some other multi-million-dollar coaches, so that people love credibility. Kind of like the difference between having a master's degree and not having one. I look less at the degree when it comes to the person and the knowledge, but the degree shows me something. It shows that you can be persistent and consistent in achieving a goal because it takes time. 10 years to become a doctor here in the U.S., 8 years to become a scientist here in the U.S., 4 years just to, get a bachelor's degree in whatever science. And when you complete it, that takes persistence and consistency. It takes some discipline and it takes some skill and will, right? You put all those together, success is definitely for you every time.
You remind me of a movie I watched a while ago. You know that McDonald's movie, with Ray Kroc? There's I'm not sure if you ever watched that, but you remind me of that with the hair salon stuff. It's like he's talking with his lawyer or something like that. And the lawyer says something, you're not in the hamburger fast food business. You're in the real estate business.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if that rings a bell, but it was something that the way you presented me reminded me of the same style of business, right?
Yeah,
but
they
I'm
teach you that
curious.
in the food industry. Ray Kroc.
Yeah, Ray Kroc.
Because he
Exactly.
started off selling milkshakes, right? See, we all knew the story and read the story. He was selling milkshakes. He found his hamburger guys that had a incredible system, right? And he was like, we could duplicate it. We put milkshakes in your place, you're going to make more money. And the biggest problem was, and this is a nugget for anybody listening. If you don't have the ability to evolve and grow, you may not want to go into business. You may not want to go into coaching. Because the problem with the McDonald's brothers, and I shout out to the movie, it was an excellent depiction of what was going on. Ray continued to evolve. He started off with milkshake. Then he saw that there was an opportunity for growth, right? He presented them with the opportunity to grow. They didn't want to grow like that. They were happy with their little corner, their little two-store. They were great with that. They didn't want more. They were comfortable. Ray was like, okay, I don't want to do it this way, but I see something that's $1 billion industry possible. Some of his tactics that he used afterwards, legally, there was nothing wrong with it. Morally, for me, I wouldn't have went about it that way because of the kind of morals that I have. But I understand in business, he saw that opportunity. And opportunity only comes in a season, right? Whether you're prepared or not. And once that season is over, that opportunity goes away. So you have to be prepared in every season for an opportunity because the season of opportunity is going to be unprepared for you, right? And so all he did was take their idea, trademark it, copyright it, branded it, and find places to duplicate it. They didn't want to do that. They ended up getting $1 million check, and their family right now could still be having checks on checks on. They could be one of those Rockefellers and Balt and Vanderbilt type families, but they didn't want to grow. And so if you stay stagnant and you don't want to grow, I would suggest that business is not for you. It's just not, because you're not going to be successful if you're going to stay the way that you are. So
I
that's
love the reminder.
the nugget for the people going forward.
Yeah. Thanks. I think I kind of hit that right, I guess. Now, after you got rolling, right, especially in the coaching space, like who are the people that kept showing up? I understand you started with the football kids and then you moved to business, but I want to understand the ones you realize, okay, this is my tribe. This is the people I can help the most with coaching. Who are they?
So I have two tribes. My first tribe was my culinary family, right? There was short info on the industry. If you know anything about watching, your Gordon Ramsays on television, right? If you look at Gordon Ramsay and see the wrinkles that are in his forehead, right? That's what we call stressors. And you'll see that from a lot of people in the culinary industry, because not only do we have to always provide as close to perfection as possible, we have to deal with anywhere from 50 to 100, and sometimes 400 different personalities every single day. You're a chef in the back, you got to deal with all your staff. You're a general manager in the front of the house, you got to deal with customers that come in. This is constant. So it weighs heavy on your mind. It becomes a stressor. The hours are long. Most restaurants are open a minimum of 12 hours a day. Most of the time, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. is pretty standard. So what I noticed in the industry is that a lot of my chef friends were being burnt out. Because of that burnt out, they would do things to supplement their performance. Instead of going to the gym and working out, energy drinks, right? Something to keep them going. Or, sometimes they would go into, other paraphernalia that's a little bit harder. Things to keep them going and keep them pumped. And I was like, this is going to destroy quite a few of my friends, right? Because burnout is real. And burnout, on top of having an addiction, on top of taking care of the family, on top of being married and taxes and everything else that goes on in the world, it weighs heavy. So my first tribe I connected with was all my executive chefs and sous chefs that I knew. And I pitched to them, if I could show you how to do the same 12-hour shift with half the stress, would you be interested in having a conversation? If I could show you how to maximize your time and minimize your overhead, would you be interested in talking to me? If I could show you how to use a certain principle, I call it the Jesus principle. If I can show you how to use this certain principle of team building to give yourself more internal peace, would you do it? And I've had very few to tell me that. And in developing that program, then my tribe became restaurant owners, right? Because they go through the same burnout. They're the ones shelling out the $500,000, $750,000, $2 million for these restaurant projects, right? And I always work on the person first, not the business. So that was my coaching style. I said, let me talk to you about what's going on with you in your life, right? I said, the business is going to be the business. The business is what it is. It's going to be ups and downs. Stuff is going to be expensive. It's going to be high. But what about the person? Because work-life balance is a myth. Yeah, you heard me say it correctly. Work-life balance has been a cliche for so long. There is not a work-life balance because most people go to work 8 hours a day. That means there's 16 hours a day left. If a third of your day consists of work and another third consists of, that means you have 8 hours for you, your significant other, and your children. There's never going to be a balance because all 24 hours is life. And if I could show you how to balance out your life, then you will see massive increases in everything else that you've been neglecting because you've been focusing on one area. And that's how I built my first tribe. And then my second tribe came from that because other people were seeing it in other businesses that what I was teaching was less about culinary, even though most of the stuff I use in culinary. I would use food references, food backgrounds. Even when I would train people to remember things, it was called the recipe. And it would be divided out literally like, okay, you need a teaspoon of patience, you need a tablespoon of forgiveness. You need a quart of water. It would be literal stuff. And it turned into the second tribe became open to just about anybody in business and my Christian foundation and my faith in the background.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, how do people usually find you? Andre, I'm not sure which tribe you want to talk about, but in a general way of saying things, how do people marketing wise tend to connect with you?
So the best way to connect, you actually want to give your social media handles or just how people normally connect with me?
No, we can do that by the end. It's more
Okay.
about the way people tend to connect with you in the first place.
So one of the most popular ways that they connect with me, of course, is LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn for quite some time, and I've been fortunate to go through the fire with LinkedIn, as you will, and actually surpass that 5-figure mark of followers. Right, which everybody knows on LinkedIn is extremely difficult to do. I think I'm somewhere in 11,000. Maybe we'll do a separate podcast and talk about how that 2.5 year climb was building LinkedIn. It was brutal, but it was extremely worth it because most of my connections are referral based, and because I have such a large following and so many people that follow my newsletter, a lot of people will contact me through LinkedIn. That's usually the most popular way. Now, of course, I have some status because I have a television show. I travel all over the world and do different cooking events, some high end people. So you see me around. So a lot of times people are like, oh, let's see, I find you. I wonder if he's still doing coaching or vice versa. Most people say, that's Coach Andre. What if he's still cooking? And it's like, yeah, I still do both. My coaching and cooking are a huge combination because the discipline you have to create a dish is the same discipline you have to create your dish and to find your recipe.
Okay. Now let's do an exercise, okay? Pretend I contacted you on LinkedIn or watched your show. Anyhow, we end up agreeing terms. We see alignment, okay? I'm now a client, let's call it like that. And I want to understand the perspective from a client, okay? The point of view of them, how working with you looks like, and what are the expected outcomes.
Fantastic. So working with me is going to be an exciting, incredible journey based on your personality, right? One of the first things I'm going to do is I have a different series of tests. One of the ones that I use is called a flight assessment, which is very similar to a DISC, except with the flight assessment, because I'm in the hospitality industry, the flight assessment takes an assessment of who you are naturally and who you are adaptively. So natural is who you act or how you act without any precursors that are going on. Like it's not a stressful situation. This is how you show up to work. This is how you act when you're normally around anybody else. And then there's 4 different benefactors that go with each or characteristics to go with each one of those. And then there's the way that you act adaptively, which is normally how you act when you're being watched, when you're stressed, when you're tired, things of that nature. Once you take that in the very beginning, I have a conversation with you first to make sure that you and I are compatible coach and coachee, right? I know coachee isn't a word, but I like to use it because of the dictionary makes up words all the time, right? So when I'm coaching somebody, that's one of the first conversations that I have. I have them take that assessment so that we can understand how to communicate with each other. Because I can communicate with all styles, but if I don't know your style, then it's going to be hard for me to communicate where you are. If you're an introvert or an extrovert, whether you're passive or you're aggressive, whether you're super talkative or you're super quiet. Yeah, I can address each one of those, right? After you take the assessment, I have a conversation with you because I have one rule. You must be coachable. Everything else can be taught. I could teach you quantum physics, even though I don't do quantum physics, but I could teach you quantum physics. I could teach you calculus. I could teach you how to read a recipe. But what I can't teach you is in those times when you don't understand, are you willing to receive feedback on how you can improve? And I usually have a few testers because I'll ask them questions about, simple questions like, so what is your ideal job? What you're doing currently ideal? Or if money wasn't an issue, what would you do? Some people will say, I would go fly kites all day if money wasn't an issue. Okay. So I'm like, okay, now I understand how to coach this particular person. What they're looking for is freedom. They're not looking for a bigger paycheck. They're not looking for more money. Because if they say, because I told them if money was no issue, what would you do? I would go fly a kite. How do I figure out, how do I get them from where they are now to the dream of flying that kite and not be dead? And then some people's like, my dream, I'm never going to stop working. I don't understand what retirement is, right? So I'm like, okay, average lifespan is about 75 years. How can I get them from where they are now with the mindset of not ever working to at least have enough balance where they still have health to achieve that goal of not working? See, it's not about me trying to change who they are. It's helping me change their mindset so they can adapt to achieve their goal. And that's how I connect with people. It's not about what I want. For me, somebody tells me I want to work until I'm 80. In my mind, no, you don't, right? And then I think about it. It's not my goal. I don't want to work to 80. That doesn't mean they don't want to work to 80. So instead of me trying to fight and change their mindset like a lot of coaches would do, I lean into it and I give them tools that will help them be better at achieving that goal in the hopes that somewhere in that goal they grow, right? And maybe that goal changes a bit. Maybe that goal goes from, you know what, I don't think I want to work to 80. Maybe I want to work till 60 and spend the next 20 years traveling the world or starting a garden, right? Playing with my grandkids if I have any, right? Started to get them to dream again, right? That's what having a paradigm shift in the mind. We get so focused on what we've been taught from our youth till we get to about our 20s and 30s that we get set in the ways and we stop dreaming like kids anymore. I bring back that dream because bringing back that dream unlocks the happiness to achieve your goal. And so that's how I start with connecting. So you take the assessment, we have conversation. I check your ability to be coachable by asking what you would be if money was not an issue. And then we work on how to achieve that. So that's the process. It's called unlocking your voice. It's realizing who you are and what it is and what your goals are, unleashing your power, right? Because you have the ability to get abundance. And then reshaping your mindset, bringing you back into an alignment to achieve your goal, not mine. My goal is to help you achieve your goal.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. That's very insightful. I really like that, especially with the unlocking, unleashing the power, and seeing if they're coachable and there's alignment and all that. Now, I'm curious where you're taking all this, Andre. Looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about?
So there are a few next steps I'm excited about because it's been a long is not the right word. It's been a tedious journey to get to where I am as a coach. The goal for me in coaching was always to help others achieve the best version of themselves. That was always the goal. I never had a dollar amount goal, right? On the back end, of course, on my business plan, I have one, but my goal was not that. My goal was to give because the law of reciprocation is always about if you give, you must receive. It may not come from who you give it to, but it's going to come back to you somehow. It's a little story I always tell people. I said, the mind is cultivated much like a farmer does with land. The land is perfect. The land is great. What the farmer plants in it determines the crop. Whether the farmer plants a poisonous plant or plants a flower or a fruit or vegetable for the greatness. The land doesn't care. The land is your mind. The land doesn't care. Your mind doesn't care what you put in it. It's your choice to put in and cultivate it. Because if you put in poison into your mind, guess what? Your mind is going to cultivate all the poison you can. But if you put in good seed that you want to do and cultivate that, your mind is going to cultivate all that. And so what I see going forward that I'm really excited about is having the opportunity to bring in more coaches. I'm expanding my team currently. My VA is actually helping me complete my book. It's called Taste and See, right? And so the Taste and See is a 21-day mindset shift where you do 7 days of voice, 7 days of power, and 7 days of mindset. And what makes the book especially different, I haven't seen anybody do this book. So people listening to this podcast, see somebody do this before my book is completed. They stole it from this podcast. Okay. At the end of each week, because it's a 21-day challenge, at the end of each week, there is a recipe that coincides with what you learned the first 7 days. Your goal for your consistency, your persistence, your discipline, skill, and will, because those are the five principles that I teach. Discipline, consistency, persistency, skill, will. If you complete the recipe, it's an actual cooked recipe. So you actually have to do that part to complete. If you complete that, you have now unlocked the first part of your consistency and persistency to achieve your goal. Same thing happens in the second 7 days, same thing in the third 7 days, where at the end of it, you now actually have a complete meal that you can serve to your family just to test to see how consistent and consistent you are. Because it's an appetizer, it's an entree, and a dessert, right? And nobody has a coaching book that not only applies what you taught and read and actually put it into a tangible form that you create. Most of the time, most coaching books, and if you've read any of them, they have you do a task, right? Write down this, do that, achieve this, write it down, repeat it, listen to it every day. Those things are wonderful, right? But just imagine if you do same thing in my book. Hey, write this down, repeat it to yourself 2 3 times a day, come back and look at it. At the end of the week, I want you to create this recipe. I want you to create this particular recipe and base it on every day that you just learned. All right. Well, this one says taste and see what I can make with my hands. I need to do this with my hands. I need to focus with my eye. I need to think with my mind. I need to make sure I have the appropriate tools so I can achieve the success. 'Cause a lot of times, people that achieve success, they have the wrong tools. Very,
Mm.
very pertinent. And so I'm excited about that, coming up and finishing that and being able to turn that into a platform where I could teach other chefs to go teach that book and turn it into a tour. Chefs are getting extremely popular in the last 10 to 15 years outside of the kitchen. For people like Gordon Ramsay or Paula or, Carla, I cannot think of Carla. Chef Carla that does favorite chef competition. All these chefs are now on platforms where they can, in a sense, go on tour like a music person would. So just imagine if I gave the tools to teach the chef to be able to go duplicate, take this on tour with their own recipes, charge people to sell out, right? And be able to do their craft, love doing their craft, but also educate people and pay for themselves. So that is
Mhm.
what I'm excited and about and what's going next. So you heard it here first. I have not said this on anybody else's podcast. Nobody else. So like I said, if you see this idea happen, it's because you heard it here first. Somebody heard it and decided they were going to duplicate it. And that is a form of flattery. So I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered.
I love that, man. That sounds exciting. And if someone listening wants to connect with you, Andre, or follow your work, where can people find you and connect with you?
My most popular place, first, I would tell you go to Google and Google my first and last name. Second, I would say go to LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn at Aundre Blasingame, my first and last name. It's Aundre, especially if you're listening and paying attention to the road and not actually looking at us on video, right? Then my social media handles are on IG is Gray Blast, which is my nickname, and Game Coaching is my handle for the coaching side. Also, Kingdom Factor. You can go to ablastingame.kingdomfactor.us and you'll be able to pull up just about everything for me as well. Just like on LinkedIn, the same thing on LinkedIn. You go to one of those two, you'll be able to find me, my Roku channel. You'll be able to find me on the Dallas local channel, and you'll be able to find all my other social media handles. I made it real simple for people because I'm the only person with that name in the entire world. So I've researched it and Googled it. There's not some people that have my first name, and of course I got plenty of family with the last name, but I'm the only one that has that combination.
Okay. Andre Blasingame. I'm going to give the full name. So, in case you're wondering if people want to Google, I'm just going to say it again. Parts of this chat really stood out to me, and I'm going to lay them out for you. Okay. I feel the need to highlight. I think, first one, when we're talking about the origin story, I really like to dive into the origin story. And that's one of the reasons. It's like we started this and coaching football kids, right? And turning them into city champions. And from there, you move to you looked at your own practice, your own chef background. You're like, hey, these guys might need some help. So, because I've been there and done that. So I love the skin in the game. I love how natural that worked. I love football. Oh, I'm going to coach some kids, I'm in the culinary, background and all that industry. And hey, I'm gonna help them, So it's so natural. It's organic, It's not like, oh, I'm gonna reinvent the wheel. It's not you've been there, done that. So I really like the origin story. I would say also to highlight the two words you mentioned, the persistency and consistency, how you framed persistency as a belief, right? As faith in yourself that you can do it. I think that's very crucial, a powerful reminder. And how the consistency bit also plays out, right? On the results oriented thing. It's like, hey, we're doing the right thing. It sounds like this is working. Let's keep doing it a little bit more. We improve, but it's like, hey, keep it consistent, keep it going, and believing in yourself. Last but not least, I would say it's when you mentioned that you got to be coachable, right? I can teach you any skill in the world, but if you're not coachable, this is going to be a hard problem to solve that I cannot solve it for you. It's a two-way street, right? So people need to put in the work. They're not doing for themselves, but they gotta be open-minded and understand that this is a process. Sometimes it's not gonna happen overnight, but understanding and believing in themselves, and having that avoiding whenever someone tells me they gotta be coachable, I always think about victim mentality, right? It's always going back to, oh, and if nothing works for me because of X, Y, and Z, because of circumstances, because of, the market or whatever. Yeah, but what are we going to do? What we're going to do about that? Right? What are we going to do about that? Right. So, yeah, this is my long-winded way of saying that I appreciate what you do and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. Okay. Great having you on.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.